Good morning, and a warm word of welcome to all of you, visitor and parishioner alike, joining us for the 138th celebration of our parish's patronal feast day. We are All Souls Parish, and today is the Feast of All Souls, or the commemoration of all the faithful departed. So congratulations on 138 years of parochial ministry here in the Sanford community. And of course, today, All Souls Day, begins our meditation throughout the month of November and through the first 2 weeks of Advent upon the most important moments of our life, those things that we call the four last things: death, judgment, heaven, or hell. And we spend the month of November, beginning with All Souls Day, with a particular meditation about those things and their reality in our life. Shakespeare once said that all men must endure their going hence, and that death cometh anon for each and for all. And today reminds us of that reality for our brothers and sisters who have gone before us, and for us who yet remain, whom sister bodily death will claim at the day and the hour chosen by God for that moment for us. For 18 years, going on 19 now, I've dealt with death and been around death nearly every single day. And some people to whom I minister that are still conscious when I meet them for last rites, their hearts are elated at the arrival of this moment because they've spent a lifetime falling in love with the divine bridegroom of their soul. And their deepest impetus as they approach their death, which they'll walk through alone, is that they are moments, perhaps, minutes or hours away from beholding the beauty of his loving gaze. And I'm also with those, sometimes conscious, who are gripping the ends of my purple stole and my shirt sleeves, and they're terrified for the arrival of this moment. They thought that they could cheat death. They thought that they could live life on their own terms. And now that death is coming and her arrival cannot be turned away, they realize that they've wasted the one lifetime they had, that they've got nothing to show for what they've done, and death terrifies them. But even with the ministry to those who are dying for nearly 19 years as a priest, it is only in this year where I understand and meditate upon death in a far more real way. As all of you know, on the 1st of July, I held my father's hand as it cooled. I had my fingers pressed into the arteries in his hands, monitoring his very last heartbeat. I had my face down by his mouth, monitoring for his very last breath. And in one moment, my father, who had helped create me, who had been there every day of my life for 47 years, in good times and bad, when our relationship was good, when it wasn't, the man who was my father, in one moment, he was there, and in the next moment, he was gone. At one moment, Dad in the hospice bed, and a moment later, a corpse. And it hit me as such a strange thing that my father isn't here anymore. My dad is gone. And in a very real way, being his eldest and only son, the mantle fell over my shoulders, reminding me that in the order of things, my mom notwithstanding, I'm next. I will face sister bodily death next, and I will take my father's name with me as I have no children. Death and its meditation and its reality are more real for me today than they have ever been. And I thank God for it because it has challenged me to stop being mediocre in the many things that I do and to start living with purpose, for my day cometh anon. Now, before I comment on the two themes of this day, I want to dispel a canard that gets thrown out there during Hallowtide each year. You will have heard on the History Channel, that channel, you want real fake news, it's the History Channel, or in some other article somewhere from an atheist or agnostic or Protestant friend, that Halloween and All Saints' Day and All Souls' Day come from Catholics in Ireland and northern Scotland baptizing an end-of-harvest pagan festival called Samhain, or spelled Samhain. And they'll say, see, Catholics are really pagans that dress up in some veneer of Christianity. How many of you have heard that that's what All Hallows Tide is? We just baptized a pagan Celtic holiday. Come on, don't be shy. You know you're watching the History Channel. That's not so. Where does Hallowtide come from? Well, it comes, like many of our great feasts, firstly from the consecration of a church. In 609, Pope Boniface IV was given by the Roman Emperor the Pantheon in Rome that many of you have visited. He spent 5 days exorcising the Pantheon because it had been dedicated to all of the gods of Rome. And it is said, even in the secular annals of history at that time, that the whole city could hear the screeching coming from the Pantheon as the demons who masqueraded as Rome's gods were ejected from that place, and the temple was consecrated as a church. And on May 13th of 609, the Pantheon was dedicated and consecrated as the Church of Our Lady of the Martyrs and of all the saints. And Pope Boniface commanded that every May 13th, the Feast of All Saints be celebrated in the Diocese of Rome and her suffragan dioceses as the Festival of All Saints. In the year 733, Pope Gregory III, after having completed the building of the First Vatican Basilica of St. Peter, consecrated a chapel in that basilica under the title of All Saints. And he moved the feast of All Saints' Day from May 13th to November 1st. And in 788, the next pope commanded that the feast be celebrated by the Universal Church on November 1st. That's where the feast day came from. Two popes who hadn't the slightest idea that there were Celts in Northern Ireland or Scotland. The feast has no relation other than coincidence with some pagan holiday. So now when you're reading or watching the History Channel, reading some dumb article that didn't do research, or talking to an uninformed friend, you guys got the receipts. You can defend Catholicism against these weird secular attacks. And over the course of a century or so, the appendant vigil to All Hallows Eve was celebrated, and the day after dedicated to the souls in purgatory, called All Souls' Day. And we call these 3 days the Triduum of the Dead, or the 3 days of the dead. And we make different meditations about death on each of the 3 days. On All Hallows Eve, or shortened in Middle English to Halloween, All Hallows Eve, we meditate upon the souls who squandered their lives, who lived for themselves according to their own plan, who were the captain of their own ships and died outside of friendship with God. On All Hallows Eve, which would have been a penitential day, how many of you eat fish on Christmas Eve? 7 fishes, your pickled herring, all of that stuff. You guys aren't good at raising your hands. I know you eat come on now. You eat fish on Christmas Eve because your Catholic ancestors observed Christmas Eve as a day of penance. Every vigil before a feast was a day of penance and fasting. Halloween, no different. And on Halloween, because of the penitential nature, we considered the souls of the damned as a cautionary tale, not to become one of them. Hell is not something, firstly, that God imposes. Hell is something that we choose for ourselves in living a life that is about us and making ourselves the captain of our own ship. That is what hell is if we die in that state. And so various traditions developed around All Hallows Eve as a reflection of our meditation, our cautionary meditation on the damned. Then All Saints' Day is a meditation upon those who died in the perfect love of God having attained Christian perfection. And now behold the face of God. The saints that we name throughout the sanctoral cycle in our liturgical calendar, and the saints whose names are unknown to us, but who ran the good race, who won the prize of the imperishable crown of glory. And we consider them because we want to imitate their life. But we also consider them because, as St. Paul says in the book of Hebrews, they are the great cloud of witnesses that cheer us on every day, that cheer us on through every struggle and every trial, that cheer us on to run the race they ran, so as to win the imperishable crown of glory, for which this life is about, and to which this life ought to give way. And then today, we begin our meditation on the four last things. We turn firstly to the souls of purgatory, and secondly to our own souls. Firstly to the souls of purgatory. We hear in our second reading today from 2 Corinthians that when we die, we will stand before Jesus Christ, who is the just judge of our soul, and give an account for our life. And he will render judgment of our life, the good and the wicked, and dole out accordingly. We hear in the book of Hebrews again that it is appointed unto man once to die, and then the judgment. And so today we consider those souls who have died in the friendship with God, but who didn't die in perfect charity, or who didn't die having made reparation for all of their sins, and are still imperfect, though they died in the friendship and the grace of God. Nothing imperfect can enter the life of heaven. And so when they die, and after their particular judgment, these souls meet God in the manifestation of the fire of his divine love. That divine love burning out like the refiner's fire all imperfections. It is a suffering that they undergo, but a suffering that is replete with joy, because the soul in purgatory knows that it's God's love vanquishing from them the things that they were not able to vanquish from themselves in this life. And they know that God, in his love, the fire of his divine love, purifying and refining them, is making them perfect so that they can behold him in love forever and unto the ages of ages. In fact, St. John Henry Cardinal Newman, who was made a doctor of the church yesterday by Pope Leo, wrote a beautiful long poem called The Dream of Gerontius. And Elgar composed a setting for that too, that some of you might have heard. And in this Dream of Gerontius poem, Gerontius is a soul who has passed away, and now he's met his guardian angel who's taking him to his judgment. And his judgment is rendered as purgatory because he died imperfectly. And Gerontius meets the beginning of that suffering with great joy. He says, I meet this moment with great joy, because he knows in that suffering that all things ungodly are being washed away, and that he's being made ready to behold the bridegroom of his soul. And so there's joy in that moment, much like the joy when we find our earthly beloved. And though she doesn't ask us, we do things to become a better man for her, just to be a better gift, even though it might hurt. And so today, we are called upon to pray for those souls. You and I do too much jumping to canonization. I see all of you putting up, oh, Dad's heavenly birthday. You don't know yet that he's in heaven. The Pope has not canonized him. You have an obligation to pray for his soul. We have the obligation to pray for the souls of our loved ones. They didn't just fly up to heaven, most likely. Most of you aren't brothers and sisters or sons and daughters of St. Teresa of Calcutta. You have the obligation to pray for the souls of your departed loved ones and your friends and all of the souls. And we as a parish, who by the will of the Bishop of the Diocese of St. Augustine, when we were established as a parish in 1887, were given the special mission within our parish and now within the Diocese of Orlando to be a parish that is always praying for the souls in purgatory, as we are All Souls Parish. We ought to have a special ministry of praying for the souls in purgatory. That is the first movement and meaning of this day. But the second movement and meaning of this day has to do with us. Not only do we consider the death and the judgment of the souls in purgatory, but we recollect to ourselves that Shakespeare was right. Death cometh anon for each and for all. There will come a day and an hour when Sister Bodily Death, as St. Francis of Assisi calls her, comes to you and removes you from this mortal coil. And we don't know the day nor the hour when that will be. And so we're called to a certain type of remembrance. And if we are wise, we will recollect this today, but then every day of the life that God gives us. And it's summed up in a short Latin adage from antiquity that until quite recently was part and parcel of our daily prayer. Tempus fugit, ergo memento mori. And translated into English, that means time is fleeting, therefore remember that you too will die. Your death is coming. And we make this meditation not to be macabre or morose, or to even have a prurient interest in when it happens or how it happens. We make this meditation every day as a way of self-examination. When I say memento mori, remember that I will die, I say it because I firstly remember that my life is not my own. My life is a gift given to me by God. The moment that your zygote was created in your mother's womb, God breathed into it a unique, individual, irrepeatable human soul that was given a destiny. Your life is a gift from Him, it's not your own. The definition of hell is living your life your way. The definition of hell is being the captain of your own ship. That is what hell is. But heaven is living life realized that what I have, who I am, and all that I am is altogether fully and fundamentally a gift. And one day, when my soul separates, discorporates from this body of mine, I will, as it says in 2 Corinthians, stand before Jesus Christ, who gave me this life. And I will give an accounting of what I did and did not do. And my life before the God who cannot deceive nor be deceived will in its entirety be laid bare. And I will face my judgment. And it will be faced in the mirror of the purpose and the reason for which God gave me this one unique, singular, short human life. And that purpose and reason is finally given to us in the answer to a child's catechism preparing for First Communion. And those of you that in your 70s and 80s and 90s, you'll be able to recite that with me. Question number 6 of the revered Baltimore Catechism, Volume 1. Why did God create you? To know Him, to love Him, and to serve Him in this life, so as to be with Him forever in the next. Of all that you do and all that you are throughout the 60, 70, 80, 90, 100 years of your life, that is the defining purpose and reason for God creating you. To know Him, to love Him, and to serve Him in this life, so that you may be with Him forever in the next. That's the defining purpose of your whole existence. And that definition, to know Him, to love Him, and to serve Him in this life so as to be with Him forever in the next, that should define how you approach your life of prayer and your duty to the virtue of religion. That should identify, that should be the particular defining factor of your marriage. It should be the defining factor of your motherhood and your fatherhood. It should be the defining factor of the friendships you keep. It should be the defining factor of how you conduct your work under the auspices of your employer. It should be the defining factor of how you engage in the corporal and spiritual works of mercy. It should be the defining factor of the hobbies and the leisures you choose. Because it is the defining factor of your purpose and your life in this world. And it will be the mirror and the measure against which you and I will be judged at the moment that we die. Did I know Him, love Him, and serve Him in this life so as to be with Him forever in the next? Or were I like the 5 foolish virgins who put it off to later, lived life on my own terms. I'll get to God later, I'll get to Him later, and then bam, all of a sudden there is no later and there is no tomorrow. Jesus said in another place, "You fool, what if your life is required of you tonight? What would you have to show for your life to the just judge?" And I want to suggest that that is a particularly pertinent meditation for each of you individually in your quiet closet of prayer to examine yourself with today and use it every single day of your life to examine yourself. You fool, if your life were required of you today, what would you have to show for it? If you died tonight, if you had a heart attack in your sleep and you stood before the just judge of your soul, if you were in a car accident trying to get out of this parking lot that is itself a purgatory, if you died in a car crash on 46 25 minutes from now, what would you have to show to the just judge of your soul? People who are wise make that meditation every day to motivate themselves to, in every moment, living fully that purpose for life, to know Him, to love Him, and to serve Him in this life. And so I ask you at the conclusion of this meditation on our patronal feast day, if tonight your life were required of you, what do you have to show for it? Amen?